Hey friends, welcome back to Homestead on a Prayer. We're out here today in the container garden on my deck, ready to do another garden tour. I'm pretty happy with the progress that this garden is making. I think that it's growing really nice and wild, just the way I like it. So let's take a look at all the plants. So first of all, this hot pepper tower, you can see the peppers are really filling out, and we've got some little peppers here and there. These plants are mostly jalapenos, and I know we have some actual peppers, so you can see in here, got some little peppers starting. So I'm pretty happy with the progress of this. And down here, so if you remember from the last garden tour, we were having some problems with some sort of root issue in a lot of my basils. You can see, so this one doesn't look great. I did just plant some replacement seeds in here to replace that basil, and you can see most of my other basils actually look like they've made a comeback, aside from this one, which you can see this one died initially. This is a weed. I planted some basil seeds here and they've just sprouted. Now, speaking of the root problem in my basil, if you remember, this lemon basil and also this one here basically both looked dead on the last garden tour. So you can see some of the stems did not make it, but the plant as a whole has actually recovered really nicely. So I think this is actually multiple plants in here. So it's possible that this specific plant didn't make it. I'm not really sure. I purchased these plants at a local nursery, so I'm not sure exactly how they were started, but they've made a really nice recovery. This basil here you can see has not, but I did stick another seed in the ground, which you can see has germinated, and that should be replacing it nicely. My petunia is looking beautiful. So we have had some really challenging weather conditions this year. I think it's actually been probably one of the most challenging years since I've been seriously gardening. And a lot of my basils, so what happened was we had a very long cold spring. It took a really long time to warm up. And then we were getting lots and lots of rain. On top of it, it was really cold, not warming up. You know, the plants like rain, but excessive rain combined with cold isn't really a great formula for success for warm weather plants like basil. And I found that a lot of my basils really suffered. And now, you know, we had a couple weeks of pretty normal weather. Now all of a sudden we are in the middle of a heat wave. It was over 90 degrees Fahrenheit yesterday, which I know is probably not all that hot to those of you in more southern locations than Connecticut. But we had over 90 degrees yesterday, today, tomorrow. Here in Connecticut, that's defined as a heat wave. So the weather has been very from one extreme to the other. So we'll see. Basil does like heat, so as long as I keep it well watered, it should be fine. So we'll see how the garden does with this heat wave. Now, my tomatoes overall, so far, now I know it is still June, so it's late June as I'm filming this, and it's been kind of a mixed bag when it comes to tomatoes. As you can see, the plants are big. They look generally healthy. I have had some disease issues, but they're generally doing okay. But one thing you will notice is a lack of fruit on these tomato plants. Now, I do have flowers and buds, and hopefully we'll be getting some fruit. But normally at this point in the season, so here's a cherry tomato. You can see this one does have a couple little immature tomatoes. So normally at this point in the season, at the end of June, I would be getting ready to harvest my first cherry tomatoes. I usually harvest my first cherry tomatoes at the very end of June, very beginning of July. And while I do have cherry tomato plants that do have fruit, they are still green and not at all close to ripe. So I do think that the cherry tomatoes will ultimately catch up, but they are a little bit behind. As for my large fruited tomatoes, I have very few plants that even have any green fruit formed at all. I don't usually harvest large fruited tomatoes until sometime in July, but the garden is definitely behind this year, and I don't think I'm the only one. I'm in a couple local gardening groups on Facebook, and in those groups I find a lot of other people are having the same struggles, I think in other parts of the country as well. So while my plants, I think I will get a decent harvest from them, they're definitely behind, so I don't know. It's been an interesting year for sure. So the goal is to keep these plants healthy as long as possible. I did mention that We have had some signs of disease, which you can see a little bit on my tomato plants here. I have been trying my best to keep it at bay organically. And I guess I just need to hope that I'm able to keep it. I mean, you can see the whole top growth of the plants looks very healthy. So I guess the main issue is really just that they're behind. So hopefully I'll be able to keep the disease at bay long enough to be able to get a real harvest. Now here, this is some of my later started basil, and you can see these are beautiful. These are looking really nice. These were not affected by that root issue. I think I had just started them when that root issue really started, so they hadn't really been affected. As I said, my lemon basil is actually making a good comeback, so that's nice. This eucalyptus seed, or seedling, that may have died. I'm not actually sure. Eucalyptus is not something I have much experience growing, so I don't really know what to tell you about that one. I've got a rosemary back there. So as far as tomatoes, this is Cherokee Purple, which is my favorite. So I have missed out on harvesting Cherokee Purple the last couple years that I've grown it, and it is my favorite slicing tomato, so it's a big loss. So this year, my Cherokee Purple plants look beautiful. I don't have any signs of fruit yet. As I said, everything does seem to be kind of behind. But I am, because the plants are doing really well and look healthy, I'm hoping that I will finally be able to get some good Cherokee Purple harvest this year. So here next to it, this is a Rosella cherry tomato. You can see this is the one I mentioned that does have some fruit. And you can see it's getting more buds and flowers. This is a small dark purple cherry tomato. Over here we have the black cherry tomato. This one, I don't think it has any fruit yet, but it is getting, like the other one, getting flowers. We have a couple larger fruited tomatoes here. I have an Azoichka tomato. This is a medium-sized true yellow tomato, which I do really enjoy. This is definitely a sign of how far behind the garden is this year. This Azoichka tomato, I've grown it the past, I think this is the third year that I've grown it, and it always yields very early, reliably early. The past 2 years I've grown it, it's yielded abundantly and early, as I said. So the fact that I'm not seeing any green fruit, or at least any sizable green fruit on this plant, is a sign. It's just an indicator of the fact that the garden is a little behind this year. And then back there in that little bit of jungle, I've also got a New Yorker tomato, which is new to me this year. This green stalk here has been yielding really well. I've got these sprouting broccoli plants here. You can see I've got 3 different varieties of sprouting broccoli. We have been harvesting, so you can see there's a couple more little heads forming in there. We've been harvesting our fill of this. It's been really delicious. Got some parsley. Shishito peppers up at the top, which they haven't started yielding yet, but you can see there are some tiny peppers and there are a lot of flowers. You can see in the back there too. So I think that we'll get a good harvest from those once they catch up a little bit. Got some kale down here, and somewhere in here we've got some celery too. Shishito peppers have, in my experience, always yielded really reliably. They're little small, green, wrinkled peppers. They're not hot, at least usually not hot. Once in a while you get one with a little bit of heat. But for the most part, they're not hot peppers. We really enjoy those, and I found that they yield really well, really reliably, really prolifically. So I'm hoping this year will not be an exception when it comes to that. So we've got another array of pots over here. Here I have a sun sugar tomato. This one is kind of similar to the sun gold as far as the tomatoes themselves and the tomato flavor. The plants, I've noticed that all of my sun sugar plants are a little bit spindly. You can see how it's kind of taller and, you know, more stem to leaf ratio. So sun gold is by far my favorite cherry tomato. It's delicious. Sun sugar, as I said, is a very similar variety, and you'll find a lot of mixed opinions as to whether sun gold or sun sugar is better in the tomato community, at least the tomato community online. There's some pretty strong opinions on both sides of that debate, and I wanted to grow both of them. I have found overall in my garden this year, I haven't harvested tomatoes from either of them yet. I will say that the sun gold plants themselves seem to be more lush with more, they seem like they're going to yield better. I mean, obviously it's early in the season. We don't know for sure what's going to happen. So I will keep you updated about that. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So here I've got a rosemary. This is a chocolate corno de toro pepper. So this is an interesting case. The top of this plant got damaged and snapped off, and the plant looked really sad for a long time. Now it's growing back. I don't know if you can even really see with how bushy this plant is turning, but this is the reason actually that some people top their peppers, because it results in a lot of side growth, a bushier plant. And if you have a long enough season, people say that it does increase your yield overall too. I'm not sure if that's the case here in Connecticut, but this pepper will be an interesting case study. It is starting to get some little buds in there. So here I had a holy basil that did not make it. Here's another holy basil. Holy basil again that didn't make it. So both of these two I have reseeded. So we will see. Hopefully they will germinate and take off. Here is a holy basil plant that I purchased. The main plant I think has died, but there's a little seedling there. So we'll see. It's just not a great year for basil, I guess. And here is the lemon basil that I rooted. So I mentioned that the other lemon basil, which I had purchased at a nursery, was not doing well. I mean, it looks pretty good now, but it wasn't doing well for a while. If you saw my previous garden tour, then you know what I'm talking about. So because it was a root issue and not a top growth issue, I decided that the best chance of being able to still have some of that lemon basil was to take a couple cuttings and root them. And basically I did that. It worked well. That did show that my theory of it being a root issue was correct. And so now I have this plant of lemon basil that rooted and is now doing really nicely. So, and then my other lemon basils made a recovery. So now looks like we'll have some extra lemon basil this year, which I am not complaining about. So here we have a couple more tomatoes that look generally healthy. You can see there are some mild signs of disease on the base. You can see here, I have a little bit of disease, which I have been trying to keep on top of. So here I have a pineapple tomato. This is a large heirloom slicer tomato, kind of a golden yellow tomato with red streaks. And here we have a Cindy's West Virginia tomato. This is a large heirloom slicer, big pink tomato, really delicious. The Cindy's West Virginia has been one of my most reliable heirloom tomatoes in recent years. I found that it is a really large tomato, but for a large tomato, it tends to be really early. So again, similar to the azoichka, the fact that I don't have tomatoes on this plant yet is another indicator that the tomato season is behind. Now pineapple, I'm not as familiar with pineapple. I did grow one plant one time that I purchased from a local nursery. This year I started pineapple plants from seed, pineapple tomato plants from seed. So I'm not sure when that actually yields. We do have flowers on all of the plants, but as I said, no fruit yet. So you can see a lot of the companion plants that I like to plant alongside my tomatoes are doing really well. Got a beautiful variegated nasturtium, another nasturtium. We've got some nice basil. This Bambino marigold is lovely. I am really loving this marigold with its little striped flowers, very delicate, and I just really love that one. I really like to add those little companion plants into the pot. You can see this pepper here has a little marigold and some alyssum growing with it. I find that, so if I was planting those tomato plants in the ground, I put them in the soil, mulch them, and then I would plant companion plants around the edge because I want to make the best use of space possible, and I also want to provide more ground coverage under the base of the tomato plant. So why not do the same thing when I'm planting in pots on the deck as well? As you can see, companion planting like that did not prevent weeds from growing. I do need to come out here and weed. I probably should have done that actually before this garden tour. But, hopefully for the next container tour, you'll see fewer weeds in my containers. So this is the pepper plant we were just looking at. This is an orange Lesia pepper. You can see this has some beautiful peppers starting on it. I'm really excited about those. This is my first year growing this pepper. And then over here, I have in here the holy basil. This is another holy basil that I purchased. And this is the one holy basil plant I have that actually looks wonderful. I have this little one that I started from seed. This one looks good too. It's just a little bit small. So that one will hopefully catch up and be beautiful like this one soon. Here I have a sweet basil. And back here we have another tomato. You can see a little signs of disease on that. That's a Berry's Crazy Cherry. This one you can see does have tomatoes, little oval cherry tomatoes. This plant, this variety, look at all these flowers. This variety tends to yield in excess, and I really love it. So hopefully it will make up for, it'll make up for all the produce that we're lacking so far this year. So the Berry's Crazy Cherry is what's called a Multiflora variety of tomato. I have one other variety in the garden that is similar to, which I will show you. I have one of those on the deck, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Those types of tomatoes yield so many tomatoes. You can see those big flower clusters there, and this actually isn't even that big of a flower cluster for this variety. So I find that those yield really well. The Berry's Crazy Cherry is really delicious. It's a pale yellow tomato with a really mild flavor. It's not my favorite personally. I have other stronger flavored cherry tomatoes that I prefer, but I really like that one mixed in for variety. And for people who don't like a really strong tomato flavor, that can be a great option too. So here we have a golden Marconi pepper plant. You can see this one has peppers. You know, interestingly, I have found this year, my peppers don't seem to be anywhere near as behind as my tomatoes. Peppers and tomatoes are both heat-loving plants, but I generally find that tomatoes are usually a little bit tougher when it comes to tolerating cooler temperatures. Peppers really do not like cool temperatures at all. So because of that, it's really surprising to me that my tomatoes seem to be so far behind. Where my peppers, I actually have a lot of pepper plants that have peppers on them. So usually I start getting tomatoes here and there in, end of June to early July. And then all throughout July, we get lots of tomatoes. And peppers don't usually really start until, at least a few weeks later than tomatoes. But I'm not sure. Maybe it'll be the opposite this year. We'll see. Now behind my golden Marconi plant, we have a sun gold tomato. This one you can see has lots of tomatoes on it. This is a golden cherry tomato, and this should yield really well. I'm hoping that this one as well will help make up for the late harvest with actually a really plentiful harvest. I actually don't think my cherry tomatoes are that far behind. I think it's mostly the large slicers that are. And then here, I had a red Reuben basil here, which succumbed to that root rot that we had, and I've replanted a couple seedlings so you can see. This should be nice and full with beautiful basil once these catch up a little bit. Now over here I have a yellow monster pepper. This one is flowering. I don't think it has any peppers yet. These two pepper plants here are both giant Marconi peppers, and you can see that these are off to a great start. And in the back, we've got some more. So this pepper came highly recommended. So this is my first year growing the giant Marconi. You can see that it seems to be off to a great start, so I have really high hopes for it. And it looks like it's going to yield really well. So as long as it continues throughout the season yielding really well, and as long as the flavor is really good, I'm going to say that is probably going on the must-grow list. At least from early indicators show that. It's a little premature to say that for sure, but so far it's looking hopeful for that. So most years in this big pot here, I like to plant a few cherry tomatoes and just kind of let them sprawl. Now this is the other Multiflora variety that I mentioned, and you can see, look at these flower clusters. This is going to yield lots of tomatoes. So this is a red variety. This is called the red centiflora. You can see it does have a few small tomatoes on it. The other Multiflora that I mentioned was the Berry's Crazy Cherry, which is pale yellow. And I also have two sun gold tomato plants in here as well. So you can see multiple clusters of fruit. So that's really exciting. Down here I have a blue spice basil. This was one of the ones that actually looked basically dead from that root condition, and you can see it's rebounded and is beautiful. This eucalyptus looks good. And then this plant here, this is another one. This one looked like it fared a little better than most when it came to the root rot, but you can't even tell that it had it now. It perked up and is beautiful. So I'm excited about that. And over here I have an orange Corno de Toro pepper, which you can see has the beginnings of some little peppers. So that is really exciting. So here I have my onion green stalk. I will say I had the best of intentions. I meant to come out and weed this green stalk before this video. I got halfway through filming and realized, oh, I did not do that yet. So you get to see it in all its weed-filled glory. We have lots of these. This is lamb's quarters, which is a wild plant, generally considered a weed. It is edible. It's actually pretty delicious. A lot of times I harvest this and give it to my daughter's rabbit because he really enjoys these especially too. So these onions here don't look amazing, but there are some that may yield at least respectable onions. I doubt there'll be anything really amazing, especially with all these weeds. Now this is an alyssum that I planted here just as a companion plant, but you can see I've got the lamb's quarter. We've got this wood sorrel that's growing here too. Those aren't helping matters. So I think I may get a couple usable sized onions. I'm not sure. As you can see, they're not doing amazing. Onions and I, at least when it comes to gardening, do not have the best relationship. I love onions when it comes to cooking. I have never really been able to successfully grow onions. I've grown some that are, usable size, but nothing, still always smaller than what you could get at the store. So I'm still hoping to be able to crack the onion code at some point. So these onions will get harvested sometime over the summer, and then I'm probably going to replant this green stalk all with greens for fall. So that's my plan. I may actually end up starting some seeds for some of these greens to replace this green stalk inside in my house, because lettuce and other greens like that don't really like to germinate when it's really hot out. So we're going to head down to the lower deck area, which is where I have lots of peppers growing. These are actually looking really good. So let's see, we've got a poblano pepper here. No signs of peppers on this yet, but it does have a lot of buds forming. Back here we have a chocolate corno de toro, which has a couple peppers. Here I've got a yellow monster pepper, which, let's see, looks like just one pepper right now, but it's pretty good sized, so that's good. We'll see how that holds up. Got a red corno de toro. Here I have a giant marconi, similar to the others on the deck. This one is a little bit smaller, so far a little bit less prolific than the ones on the deck, but still decent. Here we have, what is this? This is a red Lesia. So I showed you that other pepper on the deck that had a handful of beautiful peppers. This is the red version. Here we have, let's see, red marconi. You can see it has a little pepper and some flowers. We have another red corno de toro. Here I have another yellow monster, which you can see looks like it's going to yield decently. We'll see how the season goes. And here I've got an orange corno de toro. These seem to be doing pretty well. I've got a diamond bell pepper, which is getting buds but no flowers yet. Over here I've got a second diamond bell pepper. So these are my daughter's tomatoes. She's got sun gold and Matt's wild cherry, and I do see some signs. I'm sorry, my daughter's tomatoes. I don't know if I said tomatoes or peppers. She does have some signs of disease on these, so we'll have to come out and remove these affected leaves. But she's getting some tomatoes in there, so that's really good. And then over here, I've got a Matt's wild cherry. Similarly, I have some signs of disease on that too, so I do have to come in and remove those. So this is a delicious small red tomato. Very lovely. So this here is my final green stalk. You can see there's not a lot going on in it. We actually just filmed a video a couple days ago together where we pulled all the greens out of this and replanted it. With the heat wave that we're having, some of the lettuce was already starting to bolt, and the lettuce that was not bolting yet was going to bolt really soon. So I harvested everything I could and we replanted this. I don't think there's any signs of growth yet, so it was just a couple days ago. So we replanted this with mostly bush bean seeds and a couple basil seeds as well. The pockets that have these little seed covers on them, those are basil, because I figured that would need a little bit more help germinating. You can see I did leave a couple greens here. This green obviously is bolted and not really harvestable anymore, but I do want to save seeds from it, which is why I'm just letting it go, because I'm low on seeds of this variety and I'm hoping to be able to save some. And then over here I have a tatsoi plant. This has not, oh actually, the very first signs of bolting there. You can see that bud cluster in the middle. So this is about to bolt. I'm not planning on harvesting any more of this. I just want to save seeds from these two as well. Because these plants were very healthy, very healthy examples of their kind, I decided to save seeds from these. And hopefully that will make for some great fall growing. So that's the progress on my container garden as it stands right now. Thank you so much for walking through this container garden with me and just taking a look at the growth of all these plants. I have mixed feelings about it, as I've said. Overall, though, I think it's looking pretty positive, especially with a lot of those basils making a comeback. That was kind of unexpected, so that's a nice bonus. The peppers are doing great. Tomatoes, I'm hopeful that they will catch up, and even if we get a late harvest, that we will still get a harvest, so hopefully that is true. Thank you so much for joining me on this warm morning. I hope you're having a great day, and I can't wait to see you soon. I'll see you next time.